Welcome, Buff fans, to a Saturday night edition of the podcast. I'm pleased to be joined by Matt Smith. And Matt, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good. We had Fall Sports Media Day on Friday, which honestly, Adam Munster Tiger and I talk about this, but it's been our favorite day of the year under the coach prime era because that's the one day we get to do one-on-one interviews with players. We get to talk to a lot of players and get to know them a little bit. And honestly, we're going to go through this. You talked to a bunch of guys, I talked to a bunch of guys, and frankly, I told Adam, like, I come away from it every year thinking, man, there's a lot of really good guys on this team and like well-spoken young men and just cool stories. I enjoy talking to all these young men.
Yeah, just another example of yet again, Coach Prime has recruited another very high character class. He talks about smart, fast, tough discipline with character. All these kids are incredibly intelligent, very bright. And as far as football players at CU, definitely, in my opinion, collectively, the 3 years, the probably the brightest crop of players I've been around personally. I mean, no
Yeah.
disrespect to anybody else, but he knows what he wants. And if you don't meet muster, you're not making it here.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But first, let's talk about a former Buff because Shedeur Sanders had his sort of NFL debut last night. It's the unofficial NFL debut with the Cleveland Browns, a preseason game last night against the Carolina Panthers. And there's been a lot talked about with Shedeur always, but certainly leading up to this one, he gets the start. And I know it wasn't perfect, and there's some things you can nitpick and all that, but all in all, looked pretty good, and uh, yeah, I mean, let's just go with that. I mean, I thought he looked pretty good. You throw a couple touchdown passes, he led three touchdown drives, the Browns win the game.
Yeah, and in the first half, he got him into scoring position and they go for it on 4th and 1. They've got him out of the shotgun. In the regular season, that might be three. They
Yeah,
might just take the field goal there, especially to start a game like that. You never know. So, all things considered, I don't know how it could have gone much better. Maybe another passing touchdown in the second half. I
yeah,
mean, a couple of his throws here or there, but Brian, I mean, he looked like Shador, man. He
yeah.
looked like the guy who should have been taken first overall. By the way, I saw Cam Ward, two pass attempts in his first quarter. So, 0 for 2. I mean, Tampa Bay did reel off a 17 play drive in the
Yeah,
first quarter, which, shout out to Pride of the University of Florida, Kyle Trask. Anyway, the point is that he's the guy that we expected him to be, that we said he
right.
was the entire time. And I just hope he continues to get more and more opportunity. He played against a stacked deck. They, up until this point, really didn't take him seriously. They didn't really want to have to do that and give him that opportunity because they knew if he capitalized on it, what the volume would be outside the building and inside the locker room. And now I think Cleveland's got a problem because you watch a guy who's that popular already go out there and do that. I mean, Dylan Gabriel's not only fighting an uphill against outside perception, but he is against inside perception as well. And
Yeah,
I'll tell you this week in training camp, not just Dylan, but Kenny Pickett as well. If they go out in camp and they're getting the reps, which I promise they're going to get the majority of the reps in practice. That's how this is going to work. They're going to be feeling the pressure. And other players on the field are going to start to be like, what are we doing? Why are we wasting time? Because the
right.
truth is, they are wasting time.
Yeah,
Any snap, honestly, that Gabriel or Pickett get ahead of Shador at this point is totally wasted time. And,
yeah,
I posted a very long note last week prior to the game. And the reason I did it is because this is politics in the NFL. You have a team that drafted somebody in the third round, and that's where they planted their flag. They're going to give that guy as many opportunities to prove them right as they can. And unfortunately, Shador's in a very weird spot right now. However, he's handling things perfectly. He's
yeah,
being himself. He's a humble guy. Yeah, okay, he's doing a couple of things here or there that make Shador Shador, but he's unapologetically himself. And you can do that when you go back it up on the field, which is always what he's done. And, I just found myself last night being very proud of him and also simultaneously just shaking my head like I can't believe we had to go through all of this just for him to get here again and prove that he can do
yeah.
this to you guys. And so I think the funniest part to me is last year we watched Sean Payton run an even three-man competition in person at Broncos training camp. One day it was Knicks with the ones. The next day it was Stidham with the ones. The next day it was Zach Wilson, and then it rotated
Mhm.
for 10 days. And you know what happens? Organically, the cream rises to the top, and you can tell whose job that should be. But the Browns, in the way they're doing it, you're not allowing for that organic process to develop, which is why you're getting so many people upset at the way that they're handling things. Because no, you're not actually conducting a fair evaluation process. What you're conducting is a fair evaluation of three players. And one of them, in Dylan Gabriel, is essentially being treated like a first round draft pick with the reps that he's getting, considering there's two other vets in camp. Pickett was down for 8 days. Shedeur doesn't get rotated in. You can't tell me there aren't better alternatives on how to have handled that, no matter how far behind he was with this NFL terminology, which again, I go back to, he had Pat Shermer for 2 years and his dad's Deion Sanders. How?
Yeah.
That's if
Well,
that's true, it's an indictment of some part of the process.
yeah.
So I also struggled to believe it. And I also struggled to believe the report from Mary Kay Cabot today, how it was the terminology and it was the pre-snap, motion in the pro style offense. And I'm sorry, but if he was really that far behind, he doesn't go out there last night and look the way he did. They may have pared things down for him and maybe done some more things that he was comfortable with, but he was efficient. There were very few real sloppy mistakes. He maybe made two mistakes with pre-snap penalties, but I don't know if those were on him. He's also out there playing with guys who won't make the roster. So I think all things considered, in a disadvantageous situation, he shined like only he can.
Yeah. And they even go out and sign Tyler Huntley, which was let's add another one to the mix.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny because I was on Cleveland radio stations a lot in the spring, pre-draft, when they were looking at Shedeur at number two. Even they
Right.
wanted to talk about Shedeur and Travis, and then obviously afterwards, and every time I was on there, I would say, look, when he gets there, whatever you want to believe, as far as all these reports coming out in the draft, I promise you, when he gets there, he's going to be all in with that team, and he's going to be one of the hardest workers. He's going to be a good citizen. The media is going to love him. The fans are going to love him, and he's going to be a good player. And I know it's one game. I'm not getting reading too much into one preseason game, but he went out there and did those things. And the thing that surprised me more than anything, Matt, and I haven't been a ton on social media, but the amount of guys that are supposed to be national experts that are like, I'm surprised how good he looks. Like, then you didn't do any pre-draft evaluation because that's how he looks. I mean, I saw Chase Daniel was like, I'm shocked that he moves like that. I'm like, did you ever watch him play football? How are you shocked that he moves like that? I'm
Sean,
shocked that he looks so comfortable. Did you ever watch him play football?
when Sean Payton got the job in Denver, his first draft process, he talked about be careful that you don't get on the NFL train of groupthink, because it happens every draft where here's the
Yeah,
the keyboard warriors in their mom's basement, as he likes to say, and doing the
yeah,
YouTube scouting, and all these guys have these opinions, and that's exactly what half of these pro guys do. They're not
right.
watching full
Mhm.
games; they're watching cut ups and highlights, and yeah, there's some all 22 stuff, but you miss some context with a lot of that, especially with a situation as nuanced as Shedeur had at CU. So no, it wasn't a surprise for any of us. And yes, we've been
Yeah,
right about it the whole time. Does it mean that he's going to be quarterback one for Cleveland this year? Probably not. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know what they're going to do.
yeah,
Cutting him now would be unbelievably foolish, though.
yeah. Well, there's no
So
way they're doing that.
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I
I
would
just
like to think so,
it's an
but
interesting situation because, well, first off, I would just say anybody that's going on there saying I'm shocked he looks like that is you're making yourself look stupid, by the way.
yes, yes,
But look, you look at Brown's social media, and they are hyping him up. I mean, the
of course.
Cleveland Browns are hyping him up. They know what they have here. They're not cutting him.
I
And
look,
oh,
buddy. I'm with you. I just don't. I would have never. I mean, I was on this podcast telling you I'd be shocked if he fell out of the top 10. At this point, nothing would
yeah,
surprise me anymore.
yeah,
I just want him to keep capitalizing on his opportunities, because if he does, there's no way they can. It becomes
yeah.
too obvious.
And I will say this: I saw an interview with him that he did after the game. I think it was NFL Network, maybe.
Yeah, with
And he
Cameron Wolf. Yeah.
Yeah, is that who it was? And he was asked about not getting the reps in practice.
He doesn't care.
I will say I haven't watched every presser he's done with Cleveland. I've watched seen clips of a lot of them, and Shedeur always gives the right answer. And
He
I
did.
loved his answer last night because he's like I can't control that. I don't care. He goes, look, these are reps out here. I just got reps and I made the most of them. And you also love the fact that he's like, I didn't do as well as I should have. I disappointed my dad a little bit. You know,
It's what he sounded like for 2 years in Colorado. I
yes,
mean, his toughest critic is himself, right?
yeah.
He is humble, and I was talking to
People
somebody.
don't understand that he is humble.
No, and there's a lot behind that we could
Yeah,
do a whole episode unpacking, but he's just
yeah,
not, he supremely confident? Yeah. But at the same time, I've never heard him say anything out of pocket or
yeah,
anything that it was like, "Ooh, are you sure?" Like that's
yeah,
maybe never. It's always been the right thing with the right attitude. He
yeah,
was always incredibly courteous to media, always answers everybody's questions. I mean, and I did see him call out that Cleveland guy
yeah,
after the game, which only he could do like that.
yeah,
It was eerily reminiscent of somebody else that
yeah,
I know. But at the same time, he's not afraid. He's not afraid. He just needs a little bit of backing and support. And
yeah.
in due time, I think the universe will take care of that process for him.
And I think he's an interesting mix of confident, brash, and humble. And
100%.
I think that's perfect when you're an NFL quarterback. And we don't need to talk about Shedeur the whole time. We want to get to me today, but I was proud of him. I thought it was great to see him go out there and do that and make the most of it. I was I've always been confident. I've always thought that he was going to be a good quarterback in the NFL, and I still think that. But there was a little part of me that was like, man, I just hope he doesn't go out there and look bad because you don't want that to feed into all the narratives. And I didn't think he would, but um, you know, I'm glad he didn't because that would have fed a lot of narratives.
And that's the double-edged sword and part of why I wrote what I wrote when I posted that, dissertation as I called it, because if he had played bad, he would have been crucified as if his career was over. And if he played
Yeah,
well, he would have been invalidated.
yeah,
So understand that, what happens doesn't really have much of a bearing on what's happening. We watched it for the last 2 years. People can't wait to doubt them. People can't wait to, who don't, their detractors can't wait to actively tell you that they're
yeah,
rooting for them to fail. And so there's a reason he is one of the most polarizing athletes too. And if he makes a team with a legitimate shot, I mean, it's going to be the number one storyline in the NFL this year. So,
yeah. And the cool thing is, all the overreactions or whatever, good or bad. The one thing I know about Shador is out of all the people around, he would be the one that would have the proper perspective on what that was and say, it was a preseason game. I did some good things. Fine. Let's move on. And hopefully
yeah,
I get some
better.
more reps next time. So,
The most important thing he did was earn his way into the next phase of evaluation. And if
yeah,
Cleveland doesn't put him there, they've got another agenda. And
yeah,
and only time will tell this week in their actions and how they divvy up the work in practice.
yeah. Well, it's good to see him. The other thing, real quick, LeJounte Wester, returns the punt. That was pretty awesome to
That
see.
was awesome.
A lot of the other buffs are playing right now as we're doing this. I know Travis has got a couple passes with Jacksonville. But yeah, LeJounte, super happy for that young man. I mean, just the 1 year he was in Boulder, uh, just so awesome to talk to. He's a good young man. And for him to go out there and get that opportunity and to do that was like, wow, way to go, LeJounte. That was pretty awesome.
Humble beginnings, right? And an incredible amount of work has taken place to get him from where he was to where he is now. And
Yeah.
there's a reason that he earned the number one jersey last year, despite the fact he never got a chance to wear it. There
Right.
was a reason why on the field he did earn it
Yeah.
with his work ethic because he's incredibly consistent. He's incredibly agile. And man, I was smiling ear to ear when he broke the second level of that return coverage. So
Yeah.
yeah, he made the 53. They've been raving about him. The Ravens have been raving about
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
basically since they drafted him. Jimmy's doing well. He had another.
Hmm.
I think it was three. I think what he had three
I think it
catches
was
the
three
other night.
catches. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I mean, Trav just got worked in. He played both sides of the ball. I watched tonight. I think couple
Yeah.
of balls he caught, but we know what these guys are capable of, man. I'm not
Yeah.
worried about any of them. I'm really
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. And onto the new buffs, right? There's several of those guys that could be in those situations next year. But Cool to see Shedeur and LeJonte and the Buffs showing out this weekend. So let's
And
move on to
Shiloh, and shout out
and Shiloh.
Shiloh.
Yeah,
Can't forget Shiloh.
yeah. And hey, it's pretty cool, I will say, that Coach Prime's birthday is today as we're doing this,
Yeah. Happy
that his
birthday,
sons
coach.
are making their NFL preseason debuts like either on his birthday weekend, basically. That's pretty cool.
Very cool. It's
Yeah.
very cool.
So
Absolutely. I mean, I don't have kids, but I imagine that that would be a pretty cool thing.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So,
Yeah.
well, let's
Yeah.
move on. Media day. We got a chance to talk to a lot of guys, and the first one, obviously, Coach Prime and the quarterbacks. They did pressers. Just your reaction, real quick, from those pressers that you know everybody was a part of. Then we'll get to our individual conversations.
Let's start with the quarterbacks.
Okay.
Um, Interesting that he brought Staub up there. I think they did that as a sign of respect and appreciation for who he
Yeah.
is, what he
Hmm.
means to the team. And, look, they keep telling us that, look, don't count him out. We'll see what happens. I really like Ryan. I think he's a nice young man. Juju was sick a little bit this week, so he was in and out of practice, but he's back. I saw him today. He had a really nice throw again to Quanell X Farrakhan, who, by the way, is one of those freshmen that you need to have on your radar because once he hits the field, I think he'll just make plays.
Yeah.
So I think it was another interesting week. Coach Prime did note though they're struggling to see the full ability of Caden Salter in practice because you're not tackling live, so a
Mhm.
big part of his game is not easily represented in that type of simulated environment.
Mhm.
He's a bit more of a gamer, and that's going to show there. So I think at times maybe there's been a struggle to get the looks they want because it's not exactly what it's going to look like on
Mhm.
game day. However, I think they're learning who he is and learning how to go about it, which are what the first 2 weeks of this
Yeah.
process with the whole team there. Now that everybody's had the summer, right? What they did in the spring, it's a little bit different. So
Yeah.
here we go, is what it feels like. There is
I
serious competition all over the field, especially in that room. And I may have written off Juju a little bit too early as
yeah.
far as his potential to play pretty soon.
I will add, you're right about, they can't fully judge Juju or
And
Caden, but the one thing Coach Prime said though, is he said, but we can tell how he's reading the defense when he takes off and runs, and it sounds like they're liking what they're seeing with that, and
yeah,
so that's good, and I agree with you. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I mean, I still go back, Matt. I mean, as I've watched practice footage, and I haven't watched Saturdays yet, but like I'm still seeing Caden be the only one take snaps with the first team offense. I don't remember if there has been this time. I don't remember it. I don't remember a time on a well-off video that Juju is on the field at the same time as Jordan Seaton and the starting offensive line. So that tells me we're now 2 weeks into camp. The Caden Salter's the guy, and it's it's not quite the Shedeur conversation, where Shedeur's not getting the reps with the Browns, but like it doesn't look like Juju's getting the reps with the first team offense. And so, and I go back to like Pat Shermer when we talked to him week one, and he talks about, it's a slower process for Juju because he's never been through it.
of course.
Caden has. And I think you can see that. It seems to be playing out that way that, Caden's ahead and, Juju's clearly talented. But to me, I still read this situation as it's Caden
Yep.
and Juju's there when they need him.
Yeah, I agree. And Coach Prime, I think, said, as much when he said, look, when it's Juju's turn, you'll know about it and he'll be
Yeah.
ready for it. But,
Yeah.
and then I asked him about Caden Salter specifically, and he said, don't underestimate his throwing ability either. And so, look, I
Yeah.
agree with you. I do think that Juju his talent has equalized the competition, maybe a
Yeah.
little bit more than I thought it would in training camp is probably why I say that. And I think the fact that they probably don't love everything they've seen so far out of Salter from what we can tell. Not that it's been bad, but it's just again tough to simulate. So
Yeah.
um I think there's some habits for both of those guys that they're having to break. right now. And, I've seen Salter dirt a few out routes and things like that. So, we're coming off Shedeur, man. It's
Yeah,
going to be really hard all year not to compare it to that and compare it to Brendan Lewis. And compared to Brendan Lewis, you'd be like, oh my God,
yeah,
we found the guy,
yeah,
So,
right.
I have to, in my head, do a lot of work to erase Shedeur from memory until, we really see that come out because the consistency that he plays with is
Yeah,
really unfair to judge most other college quarterbacks, especially Colorado quarterbacks,
yeah,
So, look, I'm with you. I think the quarterback competition is going just about as we expected, but I do think there's a bright future for Julian Lewis in this
yeah.
program.
And I've kind of alluded to this. I just don't think it's as much of a competition as they're talking about. I do think that it's Caden.
Yeah.
I will say one thing. I'm feeling better about Caden now as we go along. As you watch some of these videos, there's some times there where he's doing the RPO, and you just see him make that read, and he is gone, and there's nobody saw him go,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, there's a dimension here that he adds, and Coach Prime talked about that. So I'm liking what you get out of Caden. And obviously, I love Juju's talent as well. The one other thing I want to add with the quarterbacks is, and I know that play is the bigger deal, but when you have all three of those guys at the podium together, and we've seen Caden and Juju together before, um, Caden sounds like a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
Juju
he's
sounds like a
older. He
freshman. He
should.
is older, but I'm saying there's a leadership aspect that I think is
Yeah.
there with him, and obviously the maturity, and it's obvious. There's 5 years difference, right? But I think that matters, and I think that um, not that Juju does poorly in those situations, he does fine, but like Caden's the one that like when there's a question, like, all right, this question's for all three of you. They kind of like Caden's the one that speaks up. So I think there's that leadership quality and that maturity quality that it matters, and it's going to matter August 29th against Georgia Tech and other game days. I think that that's going to be a factor as well.
Yeah. To speak to a little bit of what you're talking about with the RPO, the most encouraging sign for me by far is what they appear to be doing offensively. It really
Hmm.
appears like they're utilizing some misdirection. They are doing the pre-snap motion. They are mixing things up formationally. They're getting a lot of different personnel onto the field. This is the year you have to get to that style. You have
Yeah.
to. And they know it. And Coach Prime
Hmm.
talked about it yesterday. We're going to be doing things completely different offensively.
Yeah.
I think it maybe took them a little while to get there because we weren't hearing that rhetoric in the spring, oh, by the way. That
Yeah.
was not the stuff that they were saying in the spring. The continuation of what we were doing. It's not a new chapter.
Yeah.
Coach Prime is much more receptive to it being a new chapter now and a new
Yeah.
offense and a new team. Shoot, they had bracelets made up. New team, new guys.
Yeah.
That's a new chapter.
Yeah.
Okay. So the point is, I think he realizes it's the next step for this program, and they
Yeah.
got to do things differently offensively, which excites me as our loyal listeners understand. That's what I'm looking forward to. For them to have success, there has to be the window dressing. You have to have the misdirection. And I have seen a few of those things, certainly on the practice fields. We got an eagle eye every now and again, but
Yeah.
in the well-off videos, they're doing a good job with some of that stuff. The running game, running backs got to prove it, but it should be better this year. Knock on
Yeah.
wood. They're at least going to try it more because not sure that they're going to really have a choice. And I think it'll probably be one of their biggest weapons if they do it right. If
Yeah.
the stuff that they're doing right now translates to Saturdays.
The other interesting thing that I caught an answer from Caden was he was asked about the offense and the differences with it, and obviously it's different than what they've run in the past, and he was talking about they've implemented some things that he did at Liberty, but the one comment he made was you can see where they kind of tailor it to where he goes, when I'm in there and there's 4 plays, maybe it's 2 passes, 2 runs, and Juju gets in there and it's 4 passes.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of interesting to me because if they really want to get the run game going, they're practicing the run with Caden Salter,
Yeah.
and maybe they're not doing as much with Juju. And so,
Well, I mean, this is the playing style, right? They have
yeah,
different styles. So
it is. And so, but I do think, I mean, if that's your emphasis is running the ball, I think Caden's a guy, and Caden's one that's going to help that running game more than Juju. And so we'll see. But I think it's exciting for both guys. I think we've talked about it before. I think Ryan Staub is your number 3. He's been the number 2 the last 2 years. I look at this quarterback room and all three of those guys, like that's a pretty solid top 3 quarterbacks. You feel good about the quarterback room.
Definitely. And you got to shout out Dominique Ponder. And I know he's a fourth string guy who came from James Madison, but he's going to be playing somewhere else next year as a starter at a small school. He looks really good to me.
Yeah,
And I just wanted to, sometimes we don't mention some of those guys, but he's looked great. He's a big guy with a big arm. I mean, he's made some nice
he
plays
can
at
spin
camp.
it.
So he
Yeah,
can. He
yeah,
can. So not that I think that, that's ever, going to come into play here, but
yeah.
it is nice to see that the development is going on among some of these guys that are never going to see the field.
Yeah, good point. I know you and I both we were talking about who we talked to. There was only a couple of crossovers, so between the two of us, I think we talked about 20 different guys the other day. We don't have time to talk about all of them, but
Yeah.
give me a couple of your favorite interviews, people that you talked to yesterday that kind of stood out to you. Some impressions by them, or just their personalities, or things they said. Give me a couple guys that you talked to.
I want to start with a guy who's returning and somebody who, since he got on campus last year, I've loved his attitude and he's going to be a big factor this year. And that's DJ McKinney. I can see the
Hmm.
maturity in the growth, even from, his last season to this season. He's a great young man who's really intelligent. He's funny.
Hmm.
He's a really good personality to have back there. And I can't wait to watch the year that he's going to have as and certainly we're going to go through this and I'm going to leave so many guys out because I had a lot of fun conversations yesterday, but Simeon Price, really really articulate and well spoken, and can't wait to get his opportunity, and he's been dying for something like this. And you see a guy like Amari McNeil, who's another year older and a leader of this team, and
Yeah.
you talk to Carter and Ben together, and those guys are a blast, man. So I don't know, I mean, I could go on and on. Of the new guys, Zach Atkins stuck out to me at tight
Hmm.
end. Really had a great conversation with him. He's funny. He's got a really good perspective on what's going on here, and he's very grateful to be a part of the program.
Yeah, Zach Atkins is one of the guys I talked to. I think he was the first one I talked to, and um, yeah, I mean, just they need a tight end, man, and he looks the part. He's finally, I think, the first true tight end that they've had in the Coach Prime era. Savell Smalls, though, is he's looking the part too, and I didn't talk to him, but he's more developed as a tight end too. But Zach Atkins, I think that's a difference maker.
By the way, on Zach Atkins, one of the questions I asked everybody was if your life had a theme song, what would it be? And he was the only one that named an artist that I actually knew. And he said, everybody wants to rule the world from Tears for Fears. And I was like, wow. I was like, okay, that's a deep cut for this generation,
Yeah,
So
that's
I
awesome.
thought that was funny. I was like, it took me back. I was like, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Anyway, no, he's
awesome.
a really good guy. They're
Yeah,
really, really great young men,
yeah,
as we said at the beginning of this video, you know, tons of character in this program, and
yeah.
they've surrounded it with really elite level coaching, in my opinion, and certainly elite level talent, and have great role models. And they're not going to have a problem in the leadership department. It just might take a few weeks to really organically develop on the field once the games start rolling.
Yeah, and one guy, speaking of leadership, that I talked to had a really nice conversation with was Preston Hodge, who, Coach Prime yesterday was asked about DJ, and he had a lot of good things to say about DJ. But within that answer, he got around to Preston Hodge and saying, Preston's kind of the leader in that room right now.
Yeah,
As far as leadership, and not that DJ's not, but and then in talking to Preston, I learned that he got married a few months ago. He has a kid, and he was talking about how much that I think it was a son. He was born like maybe a year ago, something like that. I think he's 10 or 11 months old. But he said how that changed his perspective so much. And you become married and a father, and
in college.
it changes things,
More power to you.
and
More power to you.
and he's a guy too that we talked about. He clearly we were joking about Coach Livingston's comment about, hey, next time I go to Nashville, Diego Pavia, the beers are on me,
Yeah,
because of Preston Hodge, right? Because
that's
he gets
right. I
Preston
asked
Hodge
him. Yeah,
back.
I forgot about
And
that. Yeah.
so I asked Preston Hodge about that, and he kind of laughed, and he goes, "Yeah," he goes, "I didn't really know much about Diego Pavia," and he thought his career was done, and all of a sudden, people started asking him about this Diego Pavia guy, and he was like, "What?" And finds out he can come back, and he admitted it. We were talking about, like, look, had his college career been done at the end of last season, he knows, he's like, I would have been an undrafted guy. I would have had to fight through, and now he's got an opportunity. He sees this as an opportunity to play himself into the 2026 draft. And so he sees this as that, not a golden ticket, but just that golden opportunity for him to kind of redeem himself a little bit and get back. And so I think he's taking it seriously. And there's a different, when Coach Prime says there's a different Preston Hodge, I saw that, I mean, because we've talked to him before.
Yeah.
And I remember like the first time we did a press with Preston
Very
Hodge,
quiet.
that when I talked to him yesterday, and I know one-on-one's different sometimes, it was a very different Preston Hodge than the one we met with last year. And you can see it.
I love that because you and I have talked about it. Outside of maybe Salter and maybe Xavier Hill, he was the
Mhm.
biggest offseason acquisition, getting him
Yeah.
back.
Hmm.
That was huge. He was great last year, and he maybe felt like he would have been undrafted. I think he would have had a shot to be a late round guy even last year. He really put some good tape out there, and
Yeah.
now he's got a chance to play himself into a legitimate standing in the draft. I could
Yeah.
see him having a year where he ends up a fifth round pick, something like
Yeah.
that. I mean,
Hmm.
he's got all the size, the athletic ability, and I love to hear that he's a leader back there because that means that you've got Carter, you got DJ, you got Preston.
Yeah.
You got a lot of voices back there who have their eyes on everything defensively, and I think they're in a good position with that. I was talking with DJ actually. I was laughing because I was walking back down to my car and I ran into him after when I was leaving, and I didn't recognize it was him because he was in his jersey and I thought he had his pads on, but he didn't. I was like, oh, it's the Swayze shoulders. Like all these guys are bigger.
Yeah.
Everybody is bigger. It's
Yeah.
just you see that as we're starting to, see guys we haven't seen in a while in person again, and
Yeah.
that's funny. He's like everybody's bigger, and I said,
Yeah.
is it that much different? He's like, yeah, it's just they were doing Olympic lifts. Everybody made gains. He's like, have you
Yeah.
seen Anquin? He's like a different guy, and
Yeah.
so I think they're all really pleased with the strength and conditioning and the development in this program is really starting to, I think, take place
Hmm.
because there was so much turnover the first 2 years on the first two rosters. Now that you've had more carryover from 2 to 3 than 1 to 2, I think you're starting to see some of those signs that the development from the coaching staff is really starting to occur.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned Xavier Hill. He was one that I talked to. I know you didn't get a chance to meet with him. Nice young man too. I told him he had not heard the comment from Warren Sapp earlier this week when Sapp was like, "Man, in 71 and 72, we got some guards now." And he kind of laughed. He goes, "That's funny because when I was at Memphis, they'd be going through film study and everything, and Warren Sapp's name would come up in film." So he goes, I'd heard of Warren Sapp, and it was just kind of funny. So for him to compliment me, that's awesome. And so
I had
he was
heard of Warren Sapp.
right.
These kids, it's killing me. Every year we keep getting a little older and they keep understanding less and less of our references. It kills me. It makes me feel
Yeah.
old, Brian.
Well,
Makes me feel like I got a lot of this gray in my hair that I do.
look, he didn't get a chance to watch him, and so I'm glad he had heard of him. But he's a big man, and he's going to be
Yeah.
a nice addition to this team. Joseph Williams, you know, the one thing I want to say with Joseph Williams is we heard Jordan Seaton say in his recruitment at CU that Coach Prime, he goes, this was the one spot that all of my recruitment that they said, you know what, you've got to get better at this, you got to get better at that. And they talk about developing me and not promising me anything. And Joseph Williams told me the same thing about him. He goes, other places I went to, they talked to me about what they could get me for NIL, all this stuff. And he said, I came to Colorado. They didn't tell me any of that stuff. They said, here's what you need to do. Here's how we can get you better. And he goes, that's why I came to Colorado. And so he's about the third or fourth guy I've heard that has said that to me, that that's the recruit. Coach Prime will say it's not a recruiting pitch, but that's their message a lot of times. Like, look, fine,
NFL, not NIL.
yeah, go get. I mean, when Coach Prime says it, he's right. I mean, it's they're not talking about a bag with these guys. They're like, look, here's how we can get you better. And Joseph Williams is like, that's why I'm here, is because that's what they told me is here's how we can get you better. Um, he's a good sized receiver, man. I mean, he's going to be
Yeah.
fun to watch. I think Omarion Miller was another one I talked to, and I asked Omarion, I was like, "Did you think about leaving?" And he goes, "Yeah, I did because I was frustrated because you're not playing as much." He goes, "But I just realized that this is the place that I'm gonna shine." And
He's meant to be here,
he's
Omarion
meant to
Miller.
be here. Yeah. He thought about it. And he's like, no, this is where I need to be. And so he is super excited about what he can do this year. I mean, he's just, you can tell he's chomping at the bit that
Yeah.
he knows that, like, as I was telling him, like, look, I was when I write about you, I always say we've been teased a little bit by Omari, and now we're ready for the whole thing, and he knows that. He's like, I've only been able to do a little bit. He's ready to explode, and so I'm excited for him. I mean, I think the world does not know about this receiver group, Matt, and I
No.
think that it's not going to take long for them to realize that wow, Colorado's loaded again at receiver.
Yeah, it won't as long as they get the ball to him, right? I
Yeah,
mean, I think that's the biggest thing, and I think that's what Coach Prime wants to see. That's why he keeps talking about completions, 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 because
yeah,
all you need to do is just get these guys the ball in space with a chance to do something with it and let the rest take care of itself, as Shedeur did
hmm
many times. And that was really how they ended up finding a bread and butter of their offense, was that, that was their go-to, the quick game. And
yeah,
I think that's what Coach Prime is really trying to drill into Caden Salter. It's like, you don't have to try and extend every play
yeah,
on schedule, and let's see where the chips fall. And if you got to
yeah,
make something happen. But I think that's what they're trying to work into him, which is tough. I mean, getting a guy who's used to, kind of schoolyard balling it up a little bit like he did at Liberty, getting him on schedule. That's why I think it's so important Byron Leftwich is there, because
yeah,
that's a set of eyes where Coach Prime can take care of other things, because quarterback really needs somebody dedicated, and Pat Shermer can't just be focused on those guys and getting them up to speed. He's got
mhm.
to get the line right. He's got to get the backs right. He's got to get the receivers. They needed Leftwich. That was a really important. I think if you ask Coach Prime at the end of the year, and maybe you'd have to do it in a private moment, but how significant the Leftwich hire was, I anticipate that to make a real big difference.
Well, and he said the other day, he's like, look, he's been better than I thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
His impact has been better than even I thought it was going to be. That says a lot to me. Because when he's talked about previous coaches, he's talking about, yeah, like look, we know what this guy does. He brings so much to the table. When he says he's already done more than I even thought he was
Hmm.
going to do, that says a lot to me. So I thought that was a huge hire. One other guy I want to mention that I talked to that I think is going to potentially have a big year is Quincy Wiggins, who I asked him about. Coach Prime would talk about you in the past and say, if this guy ever figures it out, man, he's going to be good. I said, did you hear
Did you
that?
tell him? Did you tell him that Coach Prime said he looked like Tarzan and played like Jane?
No, but I mean, Coach Prime has said that. Like, look, Quincy Wiggins has got something there, but if he puts
Yeah.
it together, and Quincy heard that stuff, and he's like, yeah, it fueled me, and he knows. He came here last year. He's like, I know that I didn't do what I needed to do, and he's more he you can tell in the well off videos he's more ready to go, and he plays with passion. So I think that's a guy that maybe people are sleeping on a little bit. That's going to have more of an impact than we think.
Yeah, and the one guy who it doesn't seem like he's as ready to go as a lot of people thought is Jaheim Otis, from what we've seen in practice,
Yeah.
which I think has surprised some
hmm
people. They had that video where Gilly kind of like took him aside. I don't know. To be honest with you, I respect that he did that as a bit of a private moment to be sharing public. I don't know how Jaheim felt about that necessarily. I don't
Yeah.
know how great I would have felt about it, if I'm just
Yeah.
being real with you, because that's one of those like private moments. But even Coach Prime, it might have been after practice today, Otis, I think he beat Seton in a race. And Coach Prime made a comment like, now that's how you work. That's how you're supposed to work in practice. So I think still you're in a transition phase with some of the newer guys where you're busting old habits and you're trying to
hmm
get them to buy into your culture and how you do things. And let's be real, the list of guys by season's end, the last 2 years that they weren't able to reach, is very small. It's
Yeah.
very small. Even the ones that some of them that transferred out, they still got to him, right? Like I think of like a guy like Asad Wasim, who's now at FAU, and I saw he's, supposed to be one of their better players this year. They're really looking forward to the season they could have from
Yeah.
him. But some of these guys who just need a different type of venue, they're still getting buy-in out of, and you're seeing less and less. I would say in year two there were less than year one at the end of the year, and in year three I anticipate it to be even less than the first 2 years. So
Yeah.
the culture has really set in and taken place, and it feels like 5 years that he's been here to me already. And maybe that's
Yeah.
because it's been, so event packed and emotional and exciting and so many highs and even a couple of, big time lows that first year, that it feels like Coach Prime has been here for a while. And we're
Yeah.
just heading into year three, which it has been a while, but the culture has shifted so dramatically around campus. And there's been so many tangible, differences from where it was in 2022, that it's been fun to watch the transformation unfold.
Yeah, it really has, and The one thing that will be the same, at least on that opening night, is it's sold out. And so,
Yeah.
it'll be a sold out crowd. It was cool to see that. See you announce that earlier this week. So yeah, there's two games so far that are sold out, five more to go. But yeah, Matt, I mean, as we're doing this, we're less than 3 weeks away from a game.
I wanted to say I talked to Buck Buchanan, who's
Hmm.
Colorado's new kickoff specialist, and Buck said, "You guys don't have to worry; they're going to be sailing through the end zone." So I said,
Yeah,
"Great!" But he's got long hair, man. He is Buck Buchanan. People are going to like
yeah,
Buck Buchanan. I told him, "Hey, look, we're all just sick of seeing it. So
yeah,
as long as you can put it out there, I think everybody's going to be a huge
yeah,
number 43 fan." And talk to a bunch of other great guys as you did, and looking forward to seeing what these next 2 weeks hold, because I would say now enters, as we enter week 3 for training camp, separation week, right?
yeah.
Because
Hmm.
you've got one more week to separate, and then Brian, I mean, the week after that, we're going to be getting super close to game day,
Yeah,
as to they're going to need to start to prepare starters. I would say maybe the one notion that I expected when we started camp that I think has probably changed, even though Coach Prime said there's about 9 guys that they feel comfortable with on the offensive line, and I do think there's going to be a rotation. I actually do think they found their starting 5 already.
yeah. They've had the same five all through camp.
Right. And I think that's going to stay the same. And,
Yeah. Hmm.
maybe they'll end up rotating guys in there as they see
Hmm.
signs of progress or something like that. But I think that as it stands, you've got Jordan Seaton, Xavier Hill, Zarian McGill, Zy Chrysler, and Larry Johnson.
Yep. Yeah. That seems to be the five. That's who Caden Salter's been with all through camp. That's who I expect to be the five. And as long as they're healthy, I would be surprised if there was anybody else in that group, unless somebody has a really great next 2 weeks and supplants one of them. But that's who I expect to be the starting five. And yes, you hope that there's now three or four others that make it hard for
Yeah.
you to go with those five. But to where if somebody goes down, yeah, we feel good about putting so and so in there as well. So.
Should we
Um,
talk about linebacker a little bit?
yeah, I mean, we could. Yeah,
The
I mean,
rotation.
the rotation. I mean, I think early in camp it was clearly Martavius French and Reginald Hughes, but there's been some rotation. I mean, Jeremiah Brown's been in there, and um, uh, dang, what's the kid from North
Sean
Alabama?
Myers.
Yeah, Sean Myers. He's been in there a little bit as well. So yeah, I don't know who's going to start there. I don't know. We haven't talked to Hart yet.
No.
We know that Coach Hart's always told us that he likes to
That
sometimes mix that up to see how they react. I don't know if that's what it's been, or if guys actually are really competing for that, and it's unknown.
feels like a Coach Hart week, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it does feel like Coach Hart week. We don't know
Yeah.
who we're getting this week, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, no, I have noticed the rotation as well, except not Hughes. Hughes hasn't really been rotating in and out that I've seen.
yeah,
And I think they really like what they've seen out of Reginald Hughes so far. He's big and he's fast, and he had a
yeah,
really good career at Jacksonville State, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing him. They need some consistency at that position, and that's one of those positions
mhm,
we talked about as one of our red flags entering the year. And it's looking through 2 weeks like they've got one, which that's at bare minimum what they needed.
yeah. And the one thing I will say, Coach Prime said about linebackers on Saturday or on Friday at media day was that they track the speed. There's a lot of things they do. Said the linebackers are much faster than they were last year as far as getting to the ball and things like that. And so that's an important factor too.
And I think he's talking about Hughes. I mean, there's a couple sideline to
But
sideline.
I think even French. I mean,
Yeah,
those the two guys last year, Bentley and Hill Green, they were really good together. But they
downhill
were
guys.
but
They're
they
not
were
side to side
not
guys. Yeah,
fast guys.
yeah, yeah.
And Bentley especially was not a fast guy.
Mm-mm.
So I think both of them, and really you could probably go Jeremiah Brown as well. There's a lot more speed at that linebacker spot.
Overall, I would say I've liked where they're at through 2 weeks.
Yeah,
It's clear their offensive line has made some improvements to me. I feel right now about their offensive line the way I felt about their defensive line, like midway through camp last year. It was like, oh, they might be better than we thought. And so I'm not saying that they're going to be all these road graders, but as
yeah,
opposed to, what they've been the last 2 years, I do anticipate a jump.
yeah,
And it should be significant. Knock on wood. I really hope so. And overall, I love what they're doing with the offense so far. I imagine as we've now officially gotten out of their install days, things are going to only continue to grow more and more and more. And it looks like they're trying to run the ball, man. So,
yeah.
all things considered, I'd say thumbs up. And Coach Prime's doing well and healthy,
Yeah.
and he looks like himself. So all told, I'm not sure you get much more out of the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I said all summer look, I want to see it before I can believe it.
Yep.
And I know it's a training camp and you're going against yourself, but the more I see, I feel more confident about this team. I like this team more than I did 2 weeks ago when camp started. And I think Dallin Hayden looks better than I expected him to look. I think he's popped in some of those well-off videos. And DeKalen Taylor, everything I hear about him is watch out. I mean, he's going to be a guy. Micah Welch, I've always been high on him. I think that he's going to be much better. So I like that running. The running back room is too thin. You want more bodies, but I think that the guys they have in there are pretty solid. If they can stay relatively healthy, I think they're going to be good there. So yeah, overall, I feel better about this team, a couple weeks into camp than I did at the start.
100%. I was just laughing yesterday because I was talking with Simeon and I was talking with
Yeah,
DeKalen, and then Micah came and sat down. And you know that Spider-Man gif where the two Spider-Man are pointing at each other? That's like those three guys. They're like
yeah,
interchangeable people, not
yeah.
people, but as players, they're like the same size, same build, and they've figured out one
Well,
position they like.
Mike is not the same build as DeKalen though. Mike is
More or
thicker.
less. I mean, yeah, but it's not significant. It's not when
He's
you
got
when
40 pounds on him,
outside.
doesn't he?
No, God, no. 40? No chance. He's 40 pounds. Maybe it's listed that way. No way. No way. I
30.
want to
He's
see the
30.
scales. I want to see. He's the same height. There's no way.
Same
I
height,
want to
but
see the scales. Show me the scales.
isn't Taylor listed at 165?
I have
And
no idea. You're the one who pays attention to that. I
I
just
know.
eyeball them.
I think
I
Taylor's
have no.
listed at 165 and Mike is like 205.
I don't care what they're listed at because every college program wants to list their guys better than what it actually is, so
But
they look better.
but
I know
I'm
we
still
know
gonna
how it goes.
I'm still gonna disagree with you. I think Mike is gonna
That's
be
fine.
more of that pounding running back than
Their
Taylor
run
would be.
styles may be different, but their body types are pretty similar. I'm telling you.
Yeah, all right.
I
All
sat
right.
was sitting next to both of them yesterday. My point was is that it's just not that big of a difference, and I'm
Yeah,
taller than all three.
yeah.
That's the point I'm trying to say. Okay,
Well,
if
if
Micah, if
if you're taller than them, they're short.
that's what I'm
No
saying.
offense, no offense,
That's what
but
I'm saying.
yeah. Well, Matt, we got a lot to get to the next couple weeks. We'll be back next week to talk more camp and
Yeah.
have a good rest of your weekend.
All right, buddy. I'll see you soon.